Now, our next speaker is Nora Twomey, who is the co-founder of Cartoon Saloon, and which I almost feel I should say in some kind of a, animated voice or whatever. Sounds wonderful. They've done work. They do work in animation. They've done work on the Book of Kells and the Wolf Walkers. And apparently, I haven't seen them, but I've been told that women are very much part of those animations. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing Nora tell us more about it. Thank you, Nora.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here this afternoon. Not exactly sure what I'm doing here. I feel a little bit out of my depth. I don't have paper. I have a bunch of slides which I'm going to get through, but I just wanted to talk about her voice, particularly Irish voice, women's voices, through the lens of animation. We started our company back in 1999. We were a bunch of college friends that had met and decided to start telling stories together. We had two choices. We could go to the big studios in the States, or we could eat beans and toast, go down to Kilkenny and start up our own company and try and tell our own stories, and that's what we did. I was acutely aware, though, that I was one of very few female students in my year in college. I was one of three, actually, in my class. And when we set up the company, I used to think it was kind of like a submarine. That was quite stifling because there were very few women. And I felt I was in a very privileged position because my voice, through what I could do with my hands and through the stories that we could tell and put up on screens in Ireland and around the world, that was a huge privilege. And so I took it very, very seriously. And so things are much different now. We've gender equality in our studio, and we are getting to hear many more voices. Even when I go to my local bookshop, the book centre in Kilkenny, I see every year local historians putting wild women's voices up there on the shelves. My hands are full of them every Christmas. These incredible books where people are delving into the archives, finding history and putting it up on our shelves, which is really fantastic. And it's fantastic for storytellers, animators such as ourselves in Cartoon Saloon. The first story that we had an opportunity to tell was based on an Inuit folktale about a daughter of a father who was so shamed and ashamed of his daughter that he threw her into the water and forgot about her until a lonely fisherman, many years later, found her bones, ran from her as fast as he could, but she was tangled, her bones were tangled in his fishing net. And so eventually, when he was tired, instead of running from her, he turned around and faced her. And his empathy had a transformative effect on her and on him. And that story really affected me. It's a folk tale. It is molded and by many generations of a particular community of people. And so the opportunity to bring that story to the screen was something that I really cherished. And so our team worked together to animate that story. Interestingly, there's no dialogue in the story. It's all visual and music, atmosphere. And the audience are the voice of the story. You bring your own internal voice to the story. And so the story of the skeleton woman is something that is a relationship between the audience and the screen, the character of the skeleton woman, and all of the stories that folktale describes, the real stories. Our first feature film was The Secret of Kells. It was based on the very famous Book of Kells that's housed here in Trinity College in Dublin, the 9th century manuscript depicting and illustrating, illuminating the four Gospels incredibly beautifully. It was so inspiring to us all as students when we were in primary school, secondary school, and then in college. And we wanted to be part of the story of the heritage, I guess, of the Book of Kells, the illuminating of that as animators, because you it can take you up to a week to animate 6 seconds of a character's expression or performance. We felt an affinity with the monks who made something as beautiful as this. We were also acutely aware of the influences from around the world that the page like this, the Shiro page, alludes to. And so, but we, beyond the story of the monks, we wanted to also acknowledge the kind of history and the time that the Book of Kells would have been, the impact that it would have had on Ireland, a time where the pagan ways were giving way to the Christian ways, where goddesses such as Bridget, goddess of fertility, was giving way and lending her story to Saint Bridget. And I suppose the space between these two are something that we were incredibly interested in. And the gaps in knowledge as well, and trying to imagine what would have been. We're very influenced by history as much as we can gather, but we're also not afraid to use our imaginations, be part of that ourselves, be part of the ongoing molding of myth and story as we go through. We're very aware that we're just a part of a chain of storytellers. There are those who came before us and those who will come after us. And so the spaces between everything, I guess, is what interests us most in Cartoon Saloon. So where a beautiful, beautiful piece of art like the Book of Kells came to be in the Abbey of Kells, the actual place and the art itself was something that really influenced us. And we began to make that our own and both nod to the particular way the monks had of depicting the kind of flat, beautiful abstracting of human form and of the natural form, and then bringing our own kind of performance and our own experience to that as well. We were interested in the gap between nature and civilization, the feminine and the masculine. We began to find a language within our work, which was both drawing on what came before us, but also adding to it as we looked at the curves and the chaos of nature, and then the straight lines and the more kind of strict approach of the kind of more civilized kind of ideas, the chaos of life and the chaos of death, and us as human beings and the characters and the stories that we have that show everything in between. And that kind of allowed us to layer our stories as well. We're very interested in layering our stories so that children are attracted to our stories, but there's layers underneath there that if you look a second time or you look when you're a little bit older, it's all there, the complications of life, the heartache, the horrors sometimes, the depicting characters or ancient gods like Crom Cruach, the ancient god of death, winter, of everything that is dying and is about not yet reborn. How a character or like that can express something that we really needed it to express, which is how we all look for meaning in our life, I guess, and how we can cope with the chaos, which was something that was very dear to the heart of The Secret of Kells, based on the beautiful artwork in the Book of Kells. Through all of this, though, again, like I said, we invented a character called Aisling. Aisling means vision, to make sure that there was balance within this story. It was very important to us that she had a huge voice, and in ways she became a huge heart to the film. And when we spoke to young people in particular, they almost, with tunnel vision, didn't see, the other characters and just saw her. And so they connected with her, and she was an expression of nature. And oftentimes the stories that aren't archived or aren't retold or aren't deemed important at the time and that are lost to history. As a storyteller, I take a lot of courage from the words of Tommy Ungerer. Tommy Ungerer was an illustrator and a children's book author who said that children need to feel fear in order to know how to conquer it. And to me, this is incredibly important as a mother myself, who has watched my children watch everything from Peppa Pig. Sorry, I just wanted to put a slide of Peppa Pig up here in the Royal Irish Academy. But what was interesting for me as a mother was that my own children found things in Peppa Pig that scared them, which I couldn't fathom, but they found something. They needed a safe space and something to articulate the fear that they felt of whatever it was that was going on in their lives. They needed to express that through a vehicle of something that they found very familiar and very safe. And I found it funny that, and again, as a cartoonist animator, where we take a great care in the layering of stories so that children are never affronted with something that is beyond their capability to understand. I always just got a great kick and great crack out of my own children's drawings. Where like this is my eldest boy, he was 7 at the time, and he drew this, which is a Roman soldier offering, a human sacrifice to a sea god, with a lot of bloodthirsty, dogs and all the rest of it, all kind of watching. So children would process something as they see fit, but if you are able to layer stories in a way that connects them with their past and into their future, they will come back and revisit in the most wondrous of ways. Our second feature film was Song of the Sea. And again, this is a story that's very much about the spaces in between. Colm Snoddig of the wonderful traditional Irish band Keela wrote the lyrics for the Song of the Sea. Either on is either os, either huig is either has, either here is either her, either on is either oit. And this is between the here, between the now, between the north, between the south, between the east, and the west, and between a time and a place. And so again, we were trying to capture the gap between what's spoken and what's unspoken, I suppose. And the story of Song of the Sea was rooted in the folklore of Selkies. So these are creatures that are seals when they're in the sea. They take off their seal coat and they become women on land. And the legend goes, if you manage to capture a Selkie woman's coat and keep it from her, then you've trapped her. And so there are lots of wonderful stories in Irish and Nordic mythology about the capturing of these beautiful seal women. They're often tragic stories, but we wanted to be a little bit more uplifting with ours. And so we layered our story and gave a very human family heart to the whole story. Lack of voice was very important in this story. And for me, the character of Macha, again, Macha is an ancient goddess, one of the three, the maiden, the mother, and the old woman. Macha is the old woman, and she's associated with the pain of childbirth. There's many stories and many conflicting stories as to where Macha comes from. But for me, the most interesting thing about how we interpreted the character is she was somebody who loved so much that she wanted to bottle up stories, or bottle up pain, and keep them from those that she loved. This really, really, it really struck a chord with me. In my mother's last year, she told me that she had been told by her grandmother had asked her grandmother what her experience of the famine had been. And she said nothing in response. She would take her apron, put it to her face, and just rock inconsolably. And it really struck me as, first off, my mother waited until the last year of her life to tell me this, but she also, it wasn't words, it was a gesture that she told me. And I was thinking, like, who was the door closed on? Who was the door open to? Who ate? Who didn't eat? Who waited until last to eat? What was this gesture? What was it describing? And it was just, it's a stunning thing to me. But so Macha, keeping things in jars, I think, and the stories that we all talked about today, and the hidden stories and the ones that are lost to us. It also struck me that this was something that went through the women in my family, all the way down to me. I'm telling you today, it's probably the most public that this is just that gesture has ever been, and how private that gesture was, and how much it hid and how much it bottled up. Anyway, so Fionnuala Flanagan, amazing actor, also gave her wealth of experience, and the beauty of her voice, the kindness and the harshness and the fierceness of her performance added to this. And again, it's something that I go back myself and just listen to her performance. And so we, the audience, the main character of Song of the Sea is Ben, but in ways it's our audience and their connection with him. He's our way into all of these amazing characters. We also look, outside of Ireland. The Breadwinner is a film that depicts young girls in Afghanistan. The story is from the late 1990s, early 2000s. It's a fictional story about a character called Parana and her journey to try to save her family. And it's based on the testimony of women who made it to the border of Pakistan and Afghanistan and their stories. Of course, since this story has become quite topical again, and in recent years I've met a fantastic young animator called Sarah Barakzai, who was about to set up a school for young women in Kabul, an animation school, when she was forced to leave Afghanistan just before the Taliban took over again. But she's an incredible animator, and she talks about this film often and how it gave voice to a lot of women because it was broadcast in Afghanistan or on the local TV stations in Pashto and Dari, and how it gave voice and expression to those who it's simply too dangerous, to do that. And the story itself is it's not a story about a hero who goes out and accomplishes something and kind of brings it back to the village or whatever. It's a very feminine story of survival, of expression through something other than voice often, and of family. Wolfwalker is more recently is based on the folklore, the old story of the wolfmen of Ossory. So Kilkenny, where we're based, there is a story about these men who would, when they fell asleep at night, they would take the form of wolf. Their human bodies would go to sleep, and they would become wolves, and they would rampage through the countryside. And so this really sparked the imagination of Tom Moore and Ross Stewart, the directors of Wolfwalkers. But again, we wanted to bring a very feminine element into this. It's set during the Cromwell's time in Ireland in the 1600s. But the heart of this story is kind of a relationship and a friendship between Robin and Maeve, two young girls coming from very different places, and how they interact with each other. Again, the idea of nature and civilization, and how those two kind of clash against each other, and how the two characters of Maeve and Robin kind of represent those, and the friendship that they have, and how they go and redefine their futures. And again, you can see with the visual language of the stories that we tell how we bring a lot of contrast into the space between, I guess, the two different worlds, and then the space between them. Something that was great for us with this film was that little girls all around the world ran out into nature wherever they could find it, and just started to run around on all fours and howl at the moon, which I think is probably a good thing. But also, this is something that Tom had doodled during lockdown in his house, and it managed to get painted up on the side of a building in Manhattan. It was really incredible. We continue to tell stories that just try and shine a light on oftentimes the female perspective. This is a short film that we're making at the moment in association with Her Story, which is a non-profit organisation run by Melanie Lynch, who has done amazing work in the last 5 years to literally illuminate the GPO, and on Bridget's Day to try and illuminate women in Irish history. This is the story of a young girl in her village and her relationship with Bridget, the goddess, and Bridget's wells and all of that. And again, we're mixing that up with our own imaginations and our own our own history, or our own place, I suppose, as a link in the chain. I'm just going to leave you, if this works, with a little bit of a making of wolf walkers, just so you can get a sense for what we do.
Wolf, wolf, hunter far and yonder.
The forest is brimming with wolves. It's my job to hunt them down, not yours.
But we can hunt them together. Wolves, bears, dragons even.
Cartoon Saloon, they make these profoundly human films, very beautiful, very poetic films.
Something's happened to me. I'm a wolf walker. Yes, flipping great. You have 4 legs now. You can run really fast and jump so high.
And in this film, the natural world and the human world are interconnected always. As people become animals and animals become people.
Cromwell in Ireland is a fascinating period in Irish history. Cromwell is like the baddest villain in Irish history, if you ask most Irish people.
I want all the wolves gone from this forest.
Yes, my lord.
Good fellow, you have 2 days.
Funnily enough, he's the hero to a lot of English people.
That's when we had the idea of 2 kids, one from England, one from Ireland.
I'm a wolf walker. When I sleep, I'm a wolf. When I'm awake, I'm me. What's your name, anyway? Robin.
Our 2 main characters, Robin and May, had to seem very different. Robin would be a lot more subtle in her movements, a little bit more dainty, and May is a little bit more broad. The thing that made the animation unique for this production, I felt, was that there was a lot of focus on making things seem very natural and keeping the lines more loose. So for us in the rough animation, we could be a little bit more free.
You can't stay in the forest. They're cutting it all down. No great. I scared them off.
The style that we were aiming for was extremely high. We developed a way of offsetting the colors outside of the lines to make it look like mistakes in woodblock printing. The forest line is quite difficult to color. We developed a style to kind of make the outside of the color shapes a bit fuzzy to look like watercolor. We had to do quite a lot by hand, which took longer, but in the end it looks beautiful.
In this film, there is this very interesting relationship with nature, in which nature flows into the human world and back out again.
Why do you want to be human? Being a wolf is way better. I'll show you.
The amazing thing of working with Cartoon Saloon, other than the beautiful animation, the stories,
Smell you later, Tony.
is the fact that something touches us.
Thank you very much.